You set up the camera, and then you have to like repeat the thing that you want to do in order to get the shot. I gotta get up here because my cat wants to come up here. Come on. Come on, there you go. I kind of want to show off the shelf a little bit because it's cute. So what they don't tell you about owning a tiny house, the number one thing that I wanted to talk about, because I think that that's what people are kind of like mostly curious about, is money. Can living in a tiny house save you money? It depends. Before I built this tiny house, and I did not build it myself, I hired a contractor. There's been a lot of people who have asked me like, oh, did you build it yourself? Nope, did not. Hired a contractor to do that. This tiny house cost me about just under $30,000, but that also includes wiring the whole tiny house. If I would have built this on a trailer, it would have been way more expensive than $30,000. I looked into getting like a larger tiny house, like on like a gooseneck trailer. And I called a local builder and I was like, how much would, you know, these tiny houses cost? And they have various sizes, right? But I was sort of asking about this one size, which was their larger size. And it was going to cost $250,000. That's not cheaper. For $250,000 in my area, you can get a 12 to 1,500 square foot manufactured house, like an actual real house that's not on a trailer. I was like, I'm not spending $250,000 for a small, like, no, it's not happening. So I decided that wasn't the best to go for me. The cheapest that this company could do, like the smallest tiny house that they could do, was would have cost me $200,000. And so for me, I was like, well, and there's additional challenges that would have come with that. Not only would it have cost me $200,000, but you can't get a mortgage on that. I only had $30,000 when I came here. So I was just like, what do I do? With $30,000, I couldn't put that on a down payment on a property because nowadays $30,000 like doesn't get you anything in terms of property. So I couldn't buy my own house. I couldn't buy my own property. So then, you know, what do? That's why I decided to build this tiny house on a foundation, and it was significantly cheaper for me. But I would say if you're going for a tiny house on wheels, they are not necessarily cheaper. They can be if you build it yourself. Like I said, it depends. There's a lot of factors that go into tiny house building. I can only really speak to me. So with this tiny house, it's about 150 square feet, give or take. The measurement of this like rectangle is about, which is my main space, this has my kitchen and my wood stove in my living room down here, is about 8 feet by probably around 12 feet. I'll get a measuring tape out one of these days and actually measure. I probably have blueprints, I think, somewhere in my emails as well to my contractor, and I can probably tell you the exact measurements of that space. So it's about 8 by 12. And then I have an additional, think of the rest of my tiny house, including this loft, as roughly a second 8 by 12 kind of piece. I'm gonna have to draw a diagram for you folks because because my tiny house is not on wheels, I'm not restricted to just that hallway square space. So my tiny house is a little bit, I guess, more unusual and unique that way. Some other folks were asking, like, what is my plan now that I'm in the tiny house? Am I gonna live in the tiny house forever? And the answer is heck no. I love my tiny house. It's really awesome, but I think for a lot of people in the tiny house community, some people build their tiny houses, you know, in order to be like a retirement home or a retirement space, and that's totally fine, that's totally valid. But I cannot live in this tiny house. Keep in mind, this tiny house is very tiny. It's not 400, 500, 600 square feet, it's 150 square feet, which I think for me, in order to live a comfortable life, I need at least 500 square feet, preferably maybe even 600. And the reason for that is because I actually really enjoy having guests over quite a lot, and you just can't do that here. Yes, I could build a patio and have people outside, and I know that there's other ways to do that, but ultimately I really enjoy having dinner parties, and in 150 square feet, like it's just not gonna happen. So the tiny house is very much a stepping stone for me. Some other things that they don't tell you about living in a tiny house, or maybe they do, and I've actually seen another YouTuber who does van life talk about this recently on their channel as well. And he was saying that like cleaning is like constantly, like all he literally had to do was get into his van and there was just dirt everywhere. And that's the exact same thing with this tiny house. I do have more space than a van, and space, like there are some spaces that tend to stay cleaner, such as the loft space because I don't use it. And also my bedroom space tends to be slightly cleaner, but overall at the end of the day, it's still constant sweeping. Last time we were up here, we were talking about like things that they don't tell you about living tiny, and I didn't finish recording up here last time because my parents had come and then I did a bunch of work, and another point that I wanted to make today is that living tiny, especially if you're choosing to like live off grid like I am, it forces you to live the slow life, which can be a good or a bad thing. Living the slow life can be a little difficult. That's because I don't have a profession that allows me to just like work at my own pace. I think that if you are, you know, living the slow life, and if you have like a job where you're like working from home, or you're like running your own business, not to say that running your own business is easy, but I think like when you're able to like make your own hours a little bit, maybe I'm wrong on that, I don't know. But living the slow life when you have like a day job that you have to be at a certain time can be really difficult. Now I have a day job, and I do not have a day job where I work from home. Now my day job, I work close to the house, so I'm not commuting, you know, an hour each way kind of thing. I would not be able to do that at all. I find for me, because I'm not making my living off of YouTube or any other business or any work from home or anything, having a full-time job and also doing YouTube and also doing the off-grid homesteading lifestyle, it can be a lot. But when I do have to work, it can get like really overwhelming like really quickly. Like when I work at 8 a.m., I have to make sure that I'm up, especially on super cold days like this. I have to make sure that I'm up at like 5 in the morning to light the wood stove so that the tiny house has a chance to like warm up. And then I go into work and blah, blah, blah. On days like today, you know, even though I have a lot I need to still get done and it's like already noon, you know, it is nice to be reminded of the importance of living the slow life, but it can get extremely overwhelming when I have, you know, things about the like modern world that I still have to like do or attend to, you know, such as a day job. It can also be really overwhelming when I'm doing a lot of, you know, like work around the homestead, especially if I have to, you know, go pick up lumber or go pick up supplies, or, you know, like it's just everything just takes so long, like so long out here. And I'm very fortunate because I do have the main house that I can, you know, cook some meals in, and there's power and water and I can shower there, right? So I'm very fortunate when it comes to that. But even so, like everything takes forever. Heating your house takes forever. You know, you still have all these chores. In the wintertime, you have to like chop firewood. And one of the things I'm really looking forward to about summer, even though I know that it's going to be really hot in the tiny house, is I'm looking forward to not chopping any more firewood. And it's funny because I say that, oh, you know, I'm looking forward to not chopping any more firewood, but I also, like, in my heart, I know that I'm gonna be chopping firewood all freaking summer anyway. You know, to prepare for the winter. Oh my god. So, you know, living the slow life, you know, yes, it can be nice to be reminded of, you know, what's really important in life, but it can also suck and it can get really overwhelming. It isn't that I didn't think about this before, but I didn't really realize, I think, how much I would miss it. So when you live tiny, like everybody says that your like outdoor space just becomes like an extension of your living space, and it does. except for when you live in Canada. And, you know, your winter is from like, I mean, our winter here is much more mild. So our winter here is from like probably November until like March, which is still really long. And one of the things that I really miss is having like small dinner parties. So when I used to live in the city, you know, especially in the winter time, because that's like the time to cook and that's the time to, you know, just kind of slow down a little bit, is I would, you know, invite a couple of my friends over for dinner, and, you know, we would have like a really nice dinner. This was really common in the winter. And well, I can have barbecues and stuff in the summer, but I really miss having enough space to like have guests over. I do find living tiny, not only can you not have people over, but if you want to go anywhere to meet up with people, especially in the colder months, like you're paying to go somewhere. You know, you're paying to go to a restaurant, or you're paying to go to a cafe, or you're paying to rent like a hall or whatever. Like either way, like it costs more money. Living tiny, you have some pretty extreme temperature swings in the tiny house. This was kind of nice in the summer. So in the summertime, in the mornings, because it would start getting really warm around 9 or 10. So if I worked, I would close up the tiny house before I left for work. So I would close all of the windows in the tiny house. I don't have curtains over any of my windows or anything. So, you know, the sun would just beat down on my tiny house throughout the day. I mean, we are in like, I'm literally in the middle of the forest. So, you know, the sun couldn't beat down on my tiny house like as much as you would think because of the forest, but also because of the forest, there's no wind. Oh, it's brutal. Because the space is small, it can be difficult to like, you know, keep your house at like a steady temperature. So if you are the type of person that, you know, needs to have your house at exactly 21 degrees or, you know, whatever that temperature is, maybe don't live tiny because there's gonna be some pretty extreme temperature swings. That's for sure. I mean, this morning I woke up and it was 3 degrees and oh my god, it was awful. My wood stove is going out, so I'm just gonna run down and check it, and then we'll be back. I'm looking forward to finishing the tiny house. I have so much work I need to do, but I'm so excited, especially this loft space. I think this loft space is gonna be really nice. Behind the camera, there's actually, the ceiling's much higher, and there's also 2 windows, and I really enjoy sitting in that corner. I'm gonna get like one of those little couches like I was talking about before, put it in that corner, and I'm really looking forward to like sitting on the couch, watching a movie, looking out the window. Oh, it's so nice. It's so beautiful.